What you doing? Isn't today your chest day?
It is, and I've heard this exercise is great for chest activation. I've ditched my bench press for good.
Oh, ridiculous! Just roll the intro. Hey, it's Al here with
Extra!
Ordinary Athletes, here helping you fit fitness even into the busiest of lives.
So be sure to check out our other videos and playlists, hit that bell notification button, that like button, that subscribe button. It all really helps us out and helps us grow.
And if you have any questions for us, let us know in the comment section below because we are going to do a Q&A video later this summer and we need your input. And for today, we are focusing on muscle activation studies and how much you should care about them.
And the main takeaway is we want people to stop overly obsessing on muscle activation, especially our XOAers out there. And so in this video, we're going to cover three main things.
First, we're going to explain our take on muscle activation, as well as the video by SuperHuman You, which led us to make this video.
Second, we look at how mistakenly prioritizing muscle activation studies can lead to abandoning key exercises.
And third, we're going to take a look at how overly or incorrectly prioritizing muscle activation can lead to some exercise selection that don't have the best risk-reward ratio.
Okay, first off, let's explain this topic a bit more fully. Muscle activation is a really well-researched area of fitness science. You can find a lot of EMG studies and articles about muscle activation out there. Like a lot. And certainly, muscle activation is important for proper form, for injury prevention, for certain athletes, and etc. But for the sake of trying to be original, we've seen many people try to write articles or make videos promoting particular exercises based on EMG studies and muscle activation. This is where we believe this has become really overstated in online fitness and has become really confusing for fitness beginners. These studies on activation are often being taken out of context. And furthermore, a strict adherence when it comes to muscle activation can lead people to make the wrong decisions when it comes to their exercise selection. Now, we came across this video on the channel SuperHuman You, where he really prioritizes muscle activation.
He concluded that the bench press is not even rated one of the top 2 activators for the upper chest, the mid chest, and the lower chest.
The video is entitled "Bench Press is Killing Your Gains." So it's a little hard to believe, a little clickbaity, and a little silly.
Oh my God! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!
What? God, what's wrong?
You're killing your chest gains by doing bench press.
Huh?
Look how small they're getting.
Okay, so it's very clickbaity and not accurate. But first off, we must admit that our video is not going to be a critique of the SuperHuman You channel. To be honest, we hadn't heard of him before, and this was the first video of his that we saw, but it did motivate us to create this video. And second, we're definitely not saying that muscle activation isn't important at all. Making sure you're activating the correct muscles when you're working out is very key. Otherwise, it can lead to some highly questionable exercise form.
Turn back straight. Flex, turn.
But ensuring that you're properly activating the correct muscles during an exercise is very different than obsessively caring about EMG studies that tell you about which exercises preferentially activate which muscles. And honestly, we don't see this as being helpful for most of us XOAers out there. Like trying to determine the perfect hand grip for a pull-up, for perfect lat activation. Should it be slightly wider? Should it be slightly narrower? Should it be a chin-up grip? Especially if you're a beginner, don't get lost down this path. Just keep it simple for yourself and put in the work instead of trying to perfect every little minute detail for muscle activation purposes. This might be something you do get into as you become a more seasoned lifter. But even if you are that more seasoned lifter, or even if you're just interested in optimum exercise selection, then activation is certainly a consideration when you're working out. But it shouldn't be the only consideration. There are many factors to proper exercise selection: progressive overload, risk-reward ratio, your own particular situation, like your injuries, your timing, your goals. Keep all of this in perspective.
One of the ways that obsessing over muscle activation studies can lead you astray is when it makes you abandon key exercises. Let's check out what SuperHuman You says.
Now, on any given week, let's say you're doing 15 total sets of chest. If 8 out of those 15 total sets of chest are on the bench press and it's not even rated one of the top chest activators, in my opinion, you are wasting your time.
Wow, that's a real overstatement here. And it is the underlying mistaken premise that can be seen in the title. Bench press is killing your gains. Whoa, let's take a moment here and talk about clickbaity titles. They aren't necessarily unethical or bad, but the underlying point should still be true. Take Athlete X for example. He often does use clickbaity titles, but he backs it up with accurate and helpful information. But in the case of the SuperHuman You video, the title is just misleading. No, bench press will not hurt your pec gains. And that is just ridiculous. In fact, Athlete X has a video with the exact opposite title. And this leads us to one of the key points about the drawbacks on concentrating solely on muscle activation studies. If you only care and if you only obsess over muscle activation through EMG studies, then you'll be missing out on one of the key components on muscle hypertrophy, and that is progressive overload. Now, seasoned lifters will not be surprised to find out that bench press isn't the best for pec activation. In fact, they should be concentrating on exercises that focus on adduction for the best chest activation. However, bench press is a great compound exercise that really allows for progressive overload and hypertrophy. That means it is great for beginners and you can really increase the weights. And this is why it's so important for us to take these muscle activation studies and put them in perspective. It is fine to add them to our body of knowledge. In fact, Jeff Nippard, one of our favorite YouTubers, he uses these studies in his videos all the time, but they've never led him to this drastic motion of abandoning bench press. In fact, quite the opposite. He benches like a machine and makes lots of videos about it. I will let him explain why.
I think if I had to pick just one overall mass builder for the pecs, it would be the basic barbell bench press. According to the strengthandconditioningresearch.com database, long-term studies show that a strength training program made up of the bench press on its own is able to produce considerable hypertrophy of the chest.
Exactly. So yes, benching really does give you pec gains. This really isn't disputable. So again, none of this is to disparage muscle activation. In fact, it can play a key role in your training, and we've certainly made a focus on it sometimes ourselves. However, solely focusing on muscle activation may lead you to unnecessarily abandon compound exercises, which are still the best way to progressively overload. So the key here is to view it in the right light, as one part in the whole context of exercise selection.
Okay, let's talk about risk-reward ratio. The next problem we see with overly obsessing about and overly prioritizing activation is that it can lead to some really poor exercise selection. I'm specifically referring to exercises that don't have the greatest risk-reward ratio. And there are a lot of these out there. And when we're talking about exercises with poor risk-reward ratios, I'm not talking about an exercise that's guaranteed to hurt you the next time you do it. It doesn't work like that. A poor risk-reward ratio means that these might be exercises that over time really increase your chances of injury. And so for anybody who's in this for the long haul and who is concerned with their lifting longevity, definitely take risk-reward ratio into account. This isn't to say that activation studies are wrong, but rather that you need to take into account how important a particular exercise is for your program and for your goals, and contrast that with the potential risk of injury for that exercise. You certainly don't want to be ending up with some nonsense like this. Now, obviously this was a bit of silly hyperbole on our part, but the underlying point still remains, and in SuperHuman You's video, he showcases the guillotine press. Come on now, why do this? This is generally not a recommended exercise, and for good reason. Now, can this better activate the pecs? Admittedly, probably yes. But is it an exercise that we would ever recommend? Absolutely not. I mean, it literally involves ignoring some of the key elements to proper benching form. Your elbow position, the bar path, not to mention the precarious position that your shoulders are placed in. Now, if you want a full explanation for all the problems associated with the guillotine press, definitely check out this Sean Naliwanji. Sorry, Sean, I don't know how to pronounce your last name, but definitely check out his article on this. In his article, he goes into a lot more depth explaining the problems with incorporating this exercise as part of your program. And especially as a novice lifter, ask yourself what the point of this is. Is the reward significantly greater than other chest exercises like the barbell or dumbbell press? No. Is the risk significantly greater? Yes. So your choice should seem clear.
So yes, making sure that you activate the right muscles is important.
But let's please stop overly obsessing on muscle activation for exercise selection decisions. It's really only one of many considerations.
And if you agree with us, remember to crush that like button, subscribe, and hit that bell notification as well.
And if you have any questions or comments, please let us know in the comments below, and we'll be able to get to them in our Q&A video that we're doing later this summer. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Bye.